Okay, well, welcome to my math class. My name is Mr. Ramirez, and in this lesson, I'm going to show you the difference between radians and degrees and how they are connected, how they are related to one another. So we start off with the introduction of what is the distance around a circle uh, if the radius was 1. That's really our starting point. So the circumference, we all know the circumference of a circle is 2 pi times the radius. If the radius happens to be 1, then we can make the conclusion that the total distance around the circle is equal to 2 pi because the radius is 1. So it's 2 times pi times the radius, which is 1, is the distance around the circle. So if the distance around the circle is equal to 2 pi, which is 2 times 3.1416, the value of pi, we can also conclude that if we were to move around the circle, we would cover a total of 360 degrees. So 2 pi is a distance around the circle, okay? If the radius was 1 inch, then it will be 2 pi inches. If it was 1 meter, then it will be 2 pi meters. But we can also conclude that if we go around the circle, we would have traveled 360 degrees. And the reason why we need that comparison is because that allows us to make the conclusion that 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi. It's the same thing. If I go around the circle 360 degrees, I would have traveled 2 pi units around the circle. And vice versa. If I travel around the circle 2 pi units, I would have traveled, right, around the circle a total of 360 degrees. So if we leave it in terms of pi and an entire loop around the circle is equal to 2 pi, then we can break it down into thirds, fourths, eighths, sixths, it doesn't really matter. But this circle gives us the distances. If we start at 1, 0, that's our starting point, and we start walking around the circle, it tells you the distance you would travel in terms of pi. So if you go to the other side of the circle, so if you travel half the circle, a semicircle, the distance would be pi, because the entire distance around the circle is 2 pi. So for example, if I go up to the top of 0, 1, if I walk along that circle, I would have traveled pi halves. If I go all the way in the semicircle, I would have traveled pi units. If I go 3/4 of our circle, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, you can see at the bottom there as 3 pi halves. So that is the distance, okay? Key thing, distance is radians, okay? Distance is radians. We can also elaborate a little bit more in terms of degrees. If we make the comparison, if you travel around the circle 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, think of it as a clock, right? The clock. 30 degrees, 45, 60, 90, all the way around the circle. We can express that in terms of degrees, or we can express it in terms of radians. So given that the degrees, 360 degrees, is equal to 2 pi radians, we can make the conclusion and morph these two into one. So this provides us a visual representation, radians versus degrees. Degrees are the box values, okay? Radians is the ones right outside the box. So you can see here 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi radians. That's what we determined way at the beginning of the lesson. 30 degrees is pi 6, 45 degrees is pi fourths, 60 degrees is pi thirds, 90 degrees is equal to pi halves radians, and so forth and so on. So if you want to know what is 315 degrees, how many radians is that? That's 7 pi fourths. Okay, you can look at the unit circle to determine that. So there's the relationship between radians and degrees. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. And like Mr. Einstein says, if anyone who has never made a mistake, has never tried anything new, so I encourage you to always try something new. Okay, I appreciate your time. Have a good one.